Welcome back to the Love of One podcast. Today's conversation is a gentle and grounded exploration of microdosing with earth medicines, with a very special focus on psilocybin. I'm joined by Kayse Gehret, educator, guide, and founder of Global Microdosing Community, for a very heart-led discussion on ceremony, integration, nervous system support, creativity, and what it really means to work with plant medicine in relation rather than escape. So whether you're completely new to microdosing or already walking this path, this episode is an invitation to slow down, listen, and reconnect with yourself, your body, and the wisdom from old Miss Gaia.
Welcome back to Level Up Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have Kayse Gehret here to talk about microdosing and the differences between different plant medicines, research that's out there to kind of help you understand and navigate this landscape of microdosing. Psilocybin is really going to be our primary focus, but we might weave in some other medicines where it makes sense just to educate our listeners today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on today's show, Kayse, to have this exciting conversation. I myself have microdosed every now and then when I really feel the need to hold a ceremony, even just for myself. Also, psilocybin journeys with ethno guides to help and facilitators to hold my hand through a deeper ceremonial process with this. But kind of want to touch base on a little bit of all these different topics with you today and see how far we could go in an hour. For our listeners who may not be aware, can you enlighten us on what your path has looked like and where you are today and what you offer?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I love the way that you introduce practice for yourself. And you said you hold ceremony for yourself, even when you're microdosing, because that's such a beautiful representation of how this medicine actually works with us. You know, we have a tendency to lump everything in the drug category. And this is, even at a small dose, it's much more of a ritual. It's much more of a ceremony you're holding with yourself. So thank you for, framing it that way. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I came to this work very serendipitously, as a lot of people do. It was kind of, in hindsight, inevitable now. But I went into the healing arts. I grew up wanting to be a doctor. So I've always been drawn to heal and support people. And when I was starting in college, I was a pre-med major, and I intuitively heard a very strong voice, which I now know was my guide. I did not know that at the time. It was like, it's time for you to move cross country to California. And I was like, okay. And shortly thereafter, I did so. And I discovered, quote unquote, alternative medicine. I went to Esalen. I ended up spending a lot of time in my 20s in Esalen, studying body work, studying energy work, studying hypnotherapy, and really went down this very alternative path. But now I see that was preparing me for this work that I do today. As far as psychedelics, I had always been, I was curious about them, but I never participated with any kind of experience, any kind of drug altered experience, because I had a grand mal seizure disorder. I developed that, I think, due to childhood trauma and just a natural wiring for a dysregulated nervous system. And so doing something that really destabilized my mind in a high extent, I always shied away from. But years later, when I had a foundation of many, many years of contemplative practice, yoga practice, body work, energy work, I felt comfortable when I was introduced to the idea of microdosing. And I was like, I can do a small dose. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stay in control. I'm going to be in the earth realm. And I didn't really have any expectations, let alone high expectations. But I started and my seizures stopped. My seizures never returned. I had pretty instantaneous cognitive uplift, enhancement, profound nature connection, deepening spiritual connection, so many things in such a short amount of time with microdosing. And over time, with that foundation, I got really confident and trusting with the medicine and was led to work more deeply with the medicine over time. When the pandemic hit and my healing art studios were closed, I thought I was just going to do some microdosing groups to keep my community connected online, kind of bide our time together, and support our community until we could reopen again, not knowing we were going to be closed for an awfully long time in California. And so that continued on and has just grown over the last, now going into our 6th year now of
Wow.
microdosing work. We support over 30 countries and a global community who practice earth medicine, microdosing together. We also have professional programs and a podcast to kind of unite, educate, and support each other in this practice.
That's so beautiful. What a large community you've grown over the years. So proud of you. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going into the microdosing itself, let's just dive in. Let's talk first about this misconception that it's a drug because, and I think that from my own personal perspective, I do think a lot of it is society driven or big pharma driven, where theirs are actually drugs because they're chemical induced based, where, psilocybin is plant. A lot of plant medicines are plant medicines and a little more natural and placed here on purpose. So can we dive into that a little bit, but to kind of frame where we go next?
Happy to. It's kind of the biggest misconception and misunderstanding of how the practice works. So first of all, pharma implies there's a standard protocol. There's kind of a one size fits all. You take your dose, it's standard. That's not the case with earth medicine. It's so unique, and it's a relationship that is unique to your soul, your own blueprint. It's co-created with the medicine. So each and every person is going to have a different relationship with the medicine, different protocol, different dosage, all of it. Also, another big misconception is when you're working with a drug, you have to continue to take that drug to get that drug's effect. It takes typically a long time to ramp up to get the effect, and then you have to take a long time to ramp off. A lot of them, without them, you can have withdrawal symptoms in varying degrees of severity. Not the case with psilocybin. All of that. So the goal of microdosing is to not to need to physically microdose. Once you establish a connection with the medicine, over time, you actually need much less medicine to get the same result. So, for example, in my situation, when my seizure stopped, I was like, I wonder when I stop microdosing if they're going to come one day, and they've never come back. And that's what people tend to find is it's not like a drug experience that you're expected to stay on for the rest of your life. Some people do it for 6 weeks and they're like, wow, I've got a lot of benefit from this. I'll just come back to it later in life when I'm drawn back. Also, too, and I think this is the biggest difference, when you're working with most pharmaceutical medications, they tend to take you further away from yourself, meaning they numb, they disconnect, they kind of Band-Aid over whatever symptom we're having. And so we're never getting to the root of what our symptom is. Psilocybin goes straight to the heart. It was straight to the heart faster than any human intelligence can understand sometimes. And also in a very clever, wise way that we wouldn't also determine from our human mind. So that's another big, big, big difference. And that's why I think the healing when you heal with psilocybin is so lasting compared to pharma meds.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think other plant medicines are very similar in nature. They just hit a little differently, work with you a little differently. But yes, my journey is I was just thinking like, yeah, totally. It's very unique. And I think that is the biggest difference where these other medicines are just, they don't go to the root of why our pain is there, what the emotion is that's behind that pain. And these plant medicines bring it all forward, front and center, and lets you see what it is. And the things that we've hidden so long because they were scary to us come back to light so we can see them for what they are as lessons and parts of our past. And yeah, I love how you frame that. So thank you. What do people come to you for? Well, what you see in your global community, yours was for seizures, but there's so many different things that people can have that come to you. But what is your biggest successes that you see? Is there a pattern that you see that people often come? Is it mental health? Is it physical pain? Is it, what do you see?
Great question. So it's so incredibly diverse at this point, which is so exciting. And I love because people come, they're drawn for one thing, but the beauty is you get it all. Even if you just come for like cognitive improvement and you want to enhance your memory, you're going to ultimately get all the other gifts too as a bonus. So when I first started back in 2020, a lot of the things I saw were mental health. So a lot of people were struggling with the pandemic and lockdown. So lots of depression, anxiety, just constantly worried about what was going to happen. This is something we'd never been through before. And also a lot of addictions or unhealthy dependencies. So I heard a lot of people going, I'm kind of leaning on these behaviors, overeating, been drinking too much to kind of get through that time. So a lot of people also came to practice for those things. However, now fast forward, it's really equal on our intake forms. It's really interesting. So people still definitely come for mental health support, emotional regulation support, physical health conditions, lots of nervous system things, not sleeping related things. But also increasingly, we're seeing people not just want to manage symptoms and conditions. They want more than that. They want to live more fully. They want to live bigger, fuller, more expressive, creative lives. And so for personal development or creative enhancement, they're like, I know I have a book in me. I want to have support to write a book. I want to start my art again. Want to start to paint again. I want to develop connections with my guides and my ancestors. Lots more people connecting with nature and the planet and spirit. That has been huge and such a welcome thing to be seen on application. So
I love that. That just also proves that in a way that more people are waking up and just becoming their true self and want that for themselves. It's a pure act of true self-love when you take that initiative to go inward and to experience these things and go to the roots of, I don't want to say suffering as a negative, but in a sense, suffering within of what is my next step? How do I overcome this? And noticing and recognizing that what they used to do isn't working. And I love that. It seems like an uptick. And I just love that. I still love that so much. We talked about a little bit at the beginning about the ceremony aspects of plant medicine, because I do believe too that, I think one girlfriend a while back ago asked me a question, and I was like, that is such a good question, is about, do you think that people can still, if they have addictive tendencies and haven't worked through that yet, can still utilize any kind of a plant medicine or a ceremony as an addictive tool to still bypass what it is that's keeping them from moving forward? What is the difference between that? Have you seen that in your practice, and how do people recognize that? Because sometimes they might need a friend to recognize that with them and for them.
100%. This is such a powerful inquiry, and it comes up a lot in practice with people who either had addiction in their own past or they grew up. I've also worked with a lot of people who were children of alcoholics, for example, or addicts who were very careful in their own life not to allow themselves to veer in that direction. And so that too would come up sometimes is, am I getting dependent on anything? Am I getting addicted to anything? Was an edge for them. So once you start working, particularly with mushrooms are big truth and big honesty. And so it's funny, once you get into the practice, it's like, it's more so moderating your relationship with the medicine and receiving truth that you can handle and you're ready to integrate, and you have the resourcing and the kind of the scaffolding in your life to receive big truth all at once. And so that's why I love microdosing, because you have the support of your day-to-day life. It's not this big truth all at once. And also you're not really pressing the medicine for more truth than you can handle. And so once people do a journey, they're like, why would people get addicted to this? It's like just, right? It's sometimes lifetimes of content to work through and piece together. And so the tendency, I think people who aren't familiar with the medicines think it's more going to be like a drug experience or a way to escape our lives. Psilocybin is going to bring your life front and center to you. There's no escaping things. So the tendency to use it to be outside of your regular life isn't as true. Sometimes too, people ask, the experience of it is really powerful. So when you've been on the muggle world, right, 3D reality, and then you spend time in the mystical realms with psilocybin and your guides, You come to view Earth as just a little bit different perspective, right? And so sometimes that becomes the edge in the practice is like, am I leaning into this work? Do I want to do another microdosing protocol? Do I want to do another journey because I'm truly called to do that now? Or do I just want to entertain myself, distract myself, leave my day-to-day life? And that's a great point practice to have, to check in with yourself, to check in with your guide. We have all done that. And I find when you get a really clear answer very quickly, when there's something that the medicine wants to teach you and show you, and when it's just you're human being human.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of like recreational versus ceremonial. Yeah. Sometimes too, ceremonial could look different. It could look like you said earlier. I want to write a book. I want to loosen up and paint. I have been known myself to have a microdose and sit in a ceremony to say, allow the creative energy to flow through me as I paint today. And then I just get lost in the colors. And then what comes out is like, whoa. So that is a little different than just recreational. I myself have never done recreational because that's why I wanted to have this subject, is because I always thought, oh, it's a drug and I'm just, escaping. But I mean, I'm sure it can be used that way, but I think it's more powerful when it's used in the other way, in a more ceremonial space with intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's both. And one of the things that I speak in my community a lot, because people who are drawn to psilocybin tend to be pretty courageous people. Like they're ready for a change. They're ready for the unknown. Lots of people say something like, I have a good life. Like I am happy. I am successful. I am fulfilled. But when I say to myself, like the next 40 years is going to be like it is now, that's not good enough. They're not willing to settle for that anymore. And they're kind of like, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I'm willing to go there. And the same type of person that comes with that mindset tends to be a little serious, a little disciplined, a little intentionally, they have goals. They want to get to things. And they're not afraid of shadow and kind of being in the depths in the shadow and doing the trauma work. However, there comes a time where you also deserve the light as much as the dark. So sometimes people are like, oh, I just wanted to go do some mushrooms and play in my garden for the weekend. Is that wrong to just want to do it for a playful reason, or do it with friends, or do it with a partner when we're on vacation? And I think that's beautiful too. Like, yes, you can have the more serious setting, but also to have the play and the levity and the lightness. I think, especially if you have done a lot of work on yourself, is to remember too that nature wants us to play.
Yeah.
And it demonstrates that to us all the time. So mushrooms can bring you both.
No, that's beautiful. I was in a women's circle ceremony last August on 8/8, and we all sat in ceremony, bringing in the goddess energy. And we had a little psilocybin microdose one night, and it was just so fun and beautiful and playful. And I can relate to the playfulness of it. And we were in nature, and it was the most beautiful thing, doing that with a bunch of women too, by the way, everybody. Well, we're talking about psilocybin most of the time, but I do want to bring a little bit of light, since I have you here, about microdosing with other plant medicines, or, what does that look like? Or medicines that may not be plant medicines, but still have a good effect, along their journey.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that because we're in such a different place right now where there's more medicine sources that are high integrity and available to the public under religious protection laws here in the United States. So there's many more medicines available than there used to be even just a few years ago. And so I know in our community, we now work with psilocybin, but also Amanita, muscaria, as well as LSD and Wachuma, also known as San Pedro. So a big question that comes up for a lot of people is, I don't know where to start. Like, I'm drawn to work with earth medicines, but I don't know which is the right medicine for me and how to determine and decide that kind of the order of things. And so one of the things I ask people right up front is, what medicine are you drawn to? Like, which one is calling you? Because oftentimes your medicine will call you.
Yeah.
This is especially true, I think, for ayahuasca and
Totally.
psilocybin, that it'll
Not
call
leave me
you.
alone.
It'll call you forward, and then it will call you back when it's time to come back. And so that is a big piece of it. Tapping into your own intuition is a piece to it. And then we'll also listen to what's going on in your life at the time, because depending on your environment and your circumstances, sometimes we'll know like which medicine might be ideal to start with. So, for example, one we've seen a lot this year is it's been such a tumultuous year in the United States over the last year. And we've seen levels of anxiety, collective anxiety that we've never seen before. So sometimes people come to practice and they're a good candidate for it. They're ready to work with psilocybin, but their nervous system is so distorted right now. And also they're not sleeping. Sometimes they've been self-medicating with different things. So sometimes lately this year, we've been working with Amanita frequently first, because Amanita is also deeply nourishing to the nervous system, but it doesn't tend to come with that big emotionality that psilocybin can have. So if people are already feeling kind of like a raw live wire, we'll sometimes start with Amanita for 30 days just to kind of prime and till the soil and prepare, and then work with psilocybin.
What is Amanita? Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah.
It's the cute red mushroom with the white dots.
Oh,
It's the Alice in Wonderland mushroom. It's the Christmas mushroom. And yes, it's actually the Santa story came from Amanita, hence the red and white. Yep. And Amanita, you'll particularly love this, I think. So Amanita gets a lot of stigma. Lots of people, if you go on the internet, you'll read, don't work with Amanita muscaria. It's toxic. It's dangerous. And it's not particularly, if you work with her, you want to make sure you're working with a vetted source who knows how to prepare it. But it's deeply, deeply healing. And we think that it gets so much stigma because it's the only mushroom that cannot be grown by man. She can only be grown by the forest. And her, yes. So,
beautiful. She's pure divine. Then that's why. Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. I didn't know that, so thank you. I love learning. And so, with that, like, is every soul meant to work with plant medicines? Is there, like, I know, for example, ayahuasca, there's certain conditions, health conditions that may deter them from allowing to sit with the medicines. Is that normal for like psilocybin, or is psilocybin open to anyone?
There's very, very few contraindications for psilocybin. Psilocybin is one of the safest molecules out there. There are some medication contraindications, not many, but we have pharmacists in the space who are trained in conventional pharma as well as psychedelic pharma. And so they're able to consult on people's medications and dosages if people, especially when people want a journey. There's more of a concern when people are doing high dose work than ceremonial dose. And then I'll share with listeners this amazing tool that my colleague, Dr. Kristen Spear, developed. That's a tracking tool that you can run your own report and cross-check any medications for contraindications and conditions. So it's at psychedelicinteraction.com, and it's $5 or $10 a report. You just put in your medications connected to a condition typically, and then it'll give you a report cross-checked with psilocybin. So you can do it at home on your own these days.
Tool. I would imagine that practitioners could use that tool to cross-reference before they accept and do a disclaimer or something, or to
Yes, it's genius. Beautiful. It's genius. Yeah. And the one that comes up a lot is heart conditions. And typically for high dose experience, like an ayahuasca experience or high dose psilocybin journey, your heart rate goes up. It's like riding a roller coaster sometimes, or other strenuous things that are adventurous and thrilling, but can get your heart rate up. And so it's the same caution that people would give, any other kind of high intensity experience.
That's a really good point. I want to talk about a little bit off of the microdosing just for a second. and talk about in ceremonial, because what I've noticed with psilocybin, which is beautiful, because as we know, the bioscience underneath the ground is just this big, huge communication with the roots of the trees. And I've been doing a lot of land work lately. And I know that they communicate all together across the entire globe. So you don't have to be in one area and just understand what memory is stored just for that area. It's literally across the globe, which is so beautiful. So what I've noticed is when I take psilocybin on my own, I stay within my own container. But when I'm in a group setting, I tune in to everybody else. Is that typical because of the nature of this beautiful, magnificent medicine?
Yes. I love it. I love it. While you're speaking, it's funny, my guides whisk energy up and down my spine when
Oh,
someone's
yeah.
speaking
Oh, yeah.
truth. It's like a truth brush. They're like,
Yes.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I know. So yes, I love this question because it's happening so profoundly right now. And it's only going to get more profound going forward. And that's the entanglement that we can do. And so we're
Unity.
really waking up now to what we used to be able to do. Like we're living in the tail end of one of the heaviest, densest periods
Yes,
of our human species.
for sure.
And the frequency we're moving into, the era we're moving into is much lighter and faster and more heart-centered, is actually of a much higher intelligence. And we've been here before. And so there's a sense of remembering. And I think the mushrooms and the earth medicines and the plant medicines are kind of reconnecting and awakening these codes that we all have. And so a lot of people right now, especially medicine people are working with medicines, are able to suddenly entangle with each other in a new way. They're like, it's so weird. I was in a business meeting and I knew what people were going to say before they said it. I've had clients go, I'm so much better at negotiating now. It's unreal. Like I feel like I have this this advantage that other people don't have in my business relationships and dealings now. Lots of the guides in our community are entangling. We'll have dreams with each other in. Our guides will come in and talk about the other guides.
Beautiful.
Just to more telepathy.
Yeah.
Lots of more telepathy, knowing things are going to happen before they happen. And yes. So yes to all of it.
Oh, yeah, I love it. And I think it's bringing back that community that we're supposed to be rushing into finally. Not like a rush, but well, to me, yes, like the horse energy is coming through and we're all craving that community and we're definitely moving to that, like how we're going to live and how we're going to communicate and commune together and work together more harmoniously, which is beautiful from the heart. Yeah, I loved that. Yeah, it was different for me because it was in that same way with circle. And first we just laid down to kind of let it, we worked through us first before we got up and moved around. But when we were doing that, I literally was connecting my womb to all of their wombs. And we were all mothers in one way or another in that circle. And I could just be like, oh, how beautiful. So it was just so beautiful. And it just made me like appreciate the medicine even more on a group level than just by myself. Because I had a 4-hour psilocybin facilitated journey and it was very intense. Very intense. What else am I not thinking that would be really important for a first timer, even that is like, I've heard of this microdosing thing. I don't even know where to begin. Now I understand it's not a drug, it's natural. Now I understand that it's not addictive. And I understand all these different things that it can help me do and be myself. How do I move forward with this journey?
Wonderful. I think one of the questions that comes up a lot is, should I do it alone? Should I do it with a guide? Should I do it with a community? Is it like, how is going to be the best container for me to be supported in this work? And that's going to be unique to each person. It's funny. I have a preference now, just from witnessing people over the last almost 6 years now, for group work. Small, intimate group work is just unbelievable. It's just the way people move through their process. I was noticing with consistency compared to one-on-one clients, like people would move in 6 weeks in a small, focused, intimate group. what it would take 6 months when people were largely on their own. And I think there's just a power and focus and presence and amplification that happens in a small group, plus the way they connect and like spirit brings people together and magnetize people to learn and heal in relationship. It's also can be so subtle, but so profound. So lots of times, because our human world is so dense and loud and noisy, we tend to miss the messages of the medicine until we speak them out. And so sometimes people will come and go, oh, well, nothing much happened. I guess my memory's sharper and I'm a little bit more productive. And then someone else in the group will share and they'll go, oh, that's right. I did have, a deer on my front door yesterday, or things like that you just don't. I think because we're a little bit numbed by the amount of inputs that we constantly have in this modern human world.
Yeah. It's like time to slow down and reconnect outside of that. And be present in the real world, in the real surroundings that we're putting ourselves in that community. I just read an article from Dr. Joe Dispenza, just put it out from the Heart Mind Institute. Is that right? But it was beautiful. He was doing this research with them for his small groups, which are like 1,000 people, but for 6 months or 6 of them. And they actually scientifically proved that groups together with the intentions created a vast amount of healing almost instantaneously than separate. When, all these mediums and psychics and intuitives are talking about predictions into 26 all the way to 2030, they're really talking about community, but they're talking about community, collective consciousness. It's actually helping each other grow, heal, move, manifest. And I think everything happens in group. Even if you look at team, right? There's no I in team coming from the corporate world. But it's the same thing. It's kind of the same thing, but we're bringing it back into a different, more nurturing, heart-centered level. And I just love hearing you say that, because it's just confirming to what else is happening in the world today. And that this individual one-on-one is great, but the group is really where it's at. Plus, I think it helps with integration. So what does integration look like to you when people are microdosing? Because that's one of the things that people struggle with still, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And integration in real life is so different than kind of what people think it is. I have so many people who've done my group immersions come in and they go, can I tell you something? I don't want to journal. Do I have to journal? You don't have to meditate. You do not have to journal. It's really, I find integration, the medicine will show you often what will be most supportive. And then our role as a guide is to help see and recognize those things that will be like bring forth your experience more profoundly. And it's different for each person. So sometimes psilocybin will work with someone's body. Like it really talk to them through their physical body, a lot of physical movement and healing and energy shifting. That person, we would probably want to move their body, swim, dance in the morning, do yoga, get on your Peloton, whatever it is for you that helps you move your energy and bring you into coherence. We'll have them do that. Another person might have a much more mental experience. There, all of a sudden, they're like, I can't stop writing. I'm just thinking, I'm writing, I have all these ideas just pouring out of me. That person may want to journal, and that would be perfect for them. Other people, it's much more creative and visual and artistic. We had one woman, her integration was she would go out in nature and photograph birds, was her integration day to day. So it's really anything that helps you bring the natural energetic coherence that the medicine is promoting, shedding and releasing old fear, density, trauma narratives, bringing in fresh light energy and resonance. And then what are the practical lifestyle supports that are going to help promote that simultaneously?
What different practices is still like when people are on a diet, you have to do life changing, right? Kind of a life change and that you have to adjust to. I think it's very similar in nature to that. It's something that, I struggled with integration first. I just dove in. I dove in ayahuasca, the first plant medicine experience I ever had of anything. And then I was like, what do I do with that? So And I think that happens with a lot of people these days, specifically in the past, probably more so when there wasn't a lot of education about what it all means, what the process looks like, but what the support looks like after you just had this like amazing, you can't unsee what you saw, you can't unfeel what you felt. And then moving that back into daily life, a daily routine is a struggle for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Especially the bigger experience that you just
Yeah.
described. Yeah. That's why I love the way I would love to see medicines coming forth, like in a practical, accessible way for most people, is to start with microdosing almost like a dieta. I look back in ancient times, often or indigenous tradition, how they held medicine. And I'm Greek ancestry, so I really dove into Eleusis and the mysteries that happened over 2,000 years. And the way they worked was you applied to participate in them. And if you were accepted that year, you would actually begin to prepare in February. And so they called them the lesser mysteries began. And that was a period of preparation and purification, special diets. And then the main games, the main attraction, so our modern day ceremony, our big high dose experience would happen in September. So by the time we got to the main event, we were prepared, we were resourced, we prepared our body and cleansed it so that we had the ideal set and setting for that big experience, with the expectation we're going to get a lot of downloaded information and a lot of truth and clarity, and then be better prepared to integrate it with support on the other side of that. So I have seen, like you shared, like a lot of people who did the big medicine journey first, ready or not. And then we're like, I have to put this all back together somehow.
Yeah. There's like the dieta of the diet of cleaning the toxins for a month before, which was new, but it did create a really good practice for afterwards in life, like discovering that food was not making me feel comfortable in my body, and I'm not doing that anymore. So it was good enlightenment for myself along the journey, and other people that have been in my cohorts have experienced that same thing. Like, I don't even drink coffee anymore, which is crazy because my first job ever was a barista at 15, and you can imagine how long that went on.
I was going to say, are you allowed to live in Oregon if you don't drink coffee?
Right? The Pacific Northwest. No, people do look at me weird. It's okay. I'm used to it now. But yeah, it's this different life change. And I think that I just want people to feel like it's okay to have the feelings and the emotions they have after they come back, and that it's normal, and that give themselves permission to reach out to support, because I think people think oftentimes they're alone because they feel like they can't talk to anybody about it.
100%. Yes. And that's what's been, to me, one of the gifts of the pandemic, because like before the pandemic, I don't even think I'd been on Zoom like ever before the pandemic. And just because we were so sequestered and under these weird conditions, and we were kind of forced to go online. And the beauty of going online is this mycelial growth that's available and connection. So it really connected people all over the world, and especially people who live in states that are kind of as open-minded as Oregon or California. So we have a lot of people in a lot of places and states in the United States that are like, I can't talk to anybody around me about these things. And I have this whole side to me that's always been there, but it's just never been able to come out and expressed. And so particularly after you've been working with medicines, you just view life in such a different way. It's wonderful to connect with other kindred spirits who also share that perspective.
It's a different perspective. You see through different lenses, right? Everything is more joyous when you stop. And it's really about the practice of being present in the moment and trying not. But we're still human. We still have these thoughts of, oh, I wish it could be like this. Oh, I can't. Thinking about it's trying to bridge the two and find that balance, which is hard, but there is support. And so do you guys have support within your community? I would imagine with this global network that you've created and helped co-create. Do you find that people are still reaching out? Do you have like a chat where people could go? And
yeah, we get together 2 or 3 times a month.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we have people that are always new. So we always welcome beginners. It's really easy to feel welcome and come on in and ask questions, or just a lot of people just want to check out what this is all about before they start practice. And so it's a chance to kind of build your confidence listening to real people share their real stories. And we have other people that have come consistently for 5 years since we started it. So that still come. Lots of them are working with different medicines. So they're journeying now. Even when they're taking a break, there's still something to learn from the people who are actively practicing. So it's just kind of a nice, kind of a home base, people can come back to anytime that they want to connect again.
I love that. Before we go, is there anything else that we're missing out that we should point out for our listeners? Either those that are just starting down their journey or those that are been doing it for a while that you want to share?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this year in particular, so many people are going to have the opportunity to grow and blossom and awaken to gifts they have, latent, kind of dormant gifts they've had, and heal from conditions that they may have been told they could not heal from. I think we're going to have a whole set of new possibilities and awarenesses come through as this year progresses. And lots of these things on their face, if we don't know what's really happening, can be treated like a problem to solve or something to medicate. Lots of times when I see people starting to have spiritual openings and gifts come through, they're like, I'm just waking up every night at 3:47. What is going on? Like, what is up with that? And it could be different things. I mean, sometimes it has a biological origin, but that's also between that time. It's a very, the veil is very thin in the spirit land. So lots of times when you're kind of reconnecting with your angels and your guides and your ancestors, they're waking you up at that time because that's when they're channeling through you. And so you'll wake up and go, I have to get my notebook. I have to write. I have to create. I just had this idea come through, and this is what I'm supposed to do in my work right now. So it's important to be with other people who can help you recognize when your gifts are opening, what is actually happening, so that you know that it's actually, you're just on the precipice of something really beautiful. It's not something that you have to treat like a problem.
I love that because I think it's inspiring for people to keep continuing down their journey and not get so discouraged, because I think people also forget sometimes, as I myself have been guilty of it, that there's ebbs and flows, but that's purposeful for your nervous system to continue to work with you and your body. And through this whole, actually this is a new one, through a microdosing of psilocybin hypnosis session, which are fantastic, by the way. Psilocybin showed me how we often forget our body, that our body also wants to be seen and heard through this process. And they literally put me in the inside of my body. Like I'm looking at everything in my body and showing me how my nervous system is like, if you don't check in with your body, and that when you do, your nervous system settles almost like warm milk, like warm honey milk, and it just coasts through. There's no blockages, and everything is good and warm and beautiful. And I think we forget that throughout these whole journeys, it's all about being seen and heard. The plant medicine wants to be seen and heard. The person wants to be seen and heard. Your wounds do. The planet does, but your body also does. We often forget that. That's what I've learned through the medicine, particularly mushrooms.
I love that so much. I have found that absolutely true too, that psilocybin loves to put you in different people's bodies or come into your own, because that felt sense is so beyond the mind. Like sometimes we work so hard. I hear this a lot from people. They're like, I've been in therapy for so many years and I told the story so many times, but I can't get beyond a certain point. And then they work with mushrooms, and the mushroom gifts them with being in the body or being in the felt sense. And it's like, okay, that's it. That is it. I needed to feel it, not think it. Yeah. And that was the route through. And also to spirit, I think when I talk to my guide, she's shared with me in so many different ways that to be human is precious. Like spirit is not something outside of ourselves. It's something that lives through us and transmits through us. And so our bodies are these precious things that we get to experience that they don't have in the spirit realm.
Yeah.
And so you see our humanity in such a more profound, precious way. It's like our ability to breathe and be in our bodies, to physically move, to have the senses that we do, the feelings that we do, the opportunity of humor. So like humans are actually really hilarious, and it kind of comes out of it. We see this in the US right now. We're going through a really challenging time, but you see people using humor and cleverness to kind of rise through it and hold people through it together. And so, yeah, I love that. And I think we're moving into a time where our spirituality is really moving from something outside of ourselves to something that lives within us. And the medicine kind of keeps nudging us and teaching us that lesson.
Yeah. And for that, that's such a beautiful ending of our beautiful stories today. I just love that. I love this conversation with you so much. Again, I'm so thankful. How can people start to work with you or your community? Where can they go for that information? What does that container look like?
Yeah, easy. All of our things are at microdosingforhealing.com. We have everything in one place. So we have information about our global community. It's easy to enter. It's very accessible. Like I said, we gather a few times a month. Sometimes people stay in for a few months, and sometimes people stay in for years. We have a professional training program for people who are called to incorporate this into their professional life, whether you're a therapist, a coach, a healer, or just someone who wants to support others in healing. Podcast is there as well. And then we also have a professional guide group. It's kind of our collection of like witches around the world, if you will. And yeah, we gather twice a month, every month. And that's a beautiful group for people who are actively supporting others in medicine practice to come together. And we collaborate a lot. We share what we're seeing, what's really working well for people, and helping create new frameworks outside of what is really not working, with a big emphasis on group work and collaboration.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kayse. I just, every episode I do, I was like, this is my favorite episode. And then I'm like, this is my favorite episode. Oh, I just appreciate all that you do, and your whole community sounds absolutely beautiful, and your work is amazing. Thank you again for taking the time to educate our listeners today.
Thank you.
Of course. All of Kayse's information will also be in the description of this episode.